am a local clinical herbalist, the only one in Nebraska this time, so I'm kind of blazing a trail for everybody right now. And I'm also a nutritionist, and like I've talked with a lot of you, sometimes we have to play the game of life in the world of alternative medicine. So I'm also a registered dietitian and a medical nutrition therapist, which gives me that nice leeway to operate how I want to, which a lot of you are probably looking at me going, okay, I can relate to that a little bit. So I'm also teach a class here, Eastern Anatomy and Physiology, which is also, I subtitled How to Be a Traditional Healer, or I sometimes call it How to Be an Old-Fashioned Barefoot Doctor, or sometimes I title it How to Be a Sage, which you all know is my favorite word, the sage, the healer. First of all, before we even get started, we don't have to go very far to see the impact of herbal medicine on our culture. It's literally everywhere in everything that we do. Even people who are not using herbal medicines are. They just don't know it. They don't really realize it. Our little buddy right here that just kind of showed up today, just like right on cue, Mr. Aloe Vera, our famous little cactus friend from the Texas and the desert regions. Who here has not used aloe vera as a medicine? Everybody's used it for like a sunburn, a burn, a cut, irritation. A lot of people are surprised to know that it's also used internally as medicine too. It's a pretty powerful laxative, so it's used a lot for different types of constipation. In a lot of cultures, especially in the African and Northern African regions, take it daily as a tonic. So I do routinely have people from Africa. Lately, there's been a lot of immigrants from Sudan who actually call and ask for not aloe vera prepared, but just aloe vera plants, because they'll actually use it themselves. So there you have it. Or another example is everybody's used like calamine on their rash or that great outbreak of poison ivy that they've had. They've used herbal medicine. Or you've taken that little black pepper that you sprinkle on your food constantly. Is actually a very powerful medicine. People are surprised to know that it's probably one of the best things you can do for sinus congestion with a lot of mucus and phlegm. Simple black pepper. So, and we all know that basically the world was discovered, or voyagers really went out based on the spice trade. And really, if you look at American culture today, it's still very much based on the spice trade, except now we see it in, fancy chefs like Emeril Lagasse, kick it up a notch. All these different little spices are still a huge part of what Americans crave. Every chef is today almost trained as an expert in aromatic herbs, which also have a medicinal property. One of my passions is actually herbal medicine making, which I'm a huge fan of, and I think it's an absolute must for people to really begin to use alternative and herbal medicines and to really kind of take their own healthcare into their own hands as much as they can. And we'll talk about herbal medicine making. So the first question, headaches will be kind of bumped to the end here, but the question that a lot of people have is first, what is an herbalist? What is an herbalist? And as massage therapists, you can really appreciate the fact that every state has different licensing. Every state has different credentialing. Right now, there's like a national body that certifies massage therapists. And in states like Nebraska, where we're more fortunate, we have licensing for massage therapists. There is no licensing for herbalists at this time in Nebraska or very many states at all. And it's something that I'm personally trying to work on, but I know it's a long battle. But right now we do have national certification, and there's a couple of different organizations that do that. One of them being any school that you would graduate from. The other one being a national organization called the American Herbalist Guild, which is like the creme de la creme of herbalists in the nation. Represents some of the people that have been practicing 25, 35, 40, 45 years. Really the people, if you look at the history of herbal medicine, and you study the history of medicine itself, really in about 1890, right around that time, there were some really interesting political events that happened that allowed the AMA, the American Medical Association, to really kind of come into power. And I'm not saying if that's good or bad, I'm just saying before that happened, there was a very vibrant school of herbalists. There were over 35 herbal medicine schools in America. There were herbal medicine doctors practicing in every state of the union. And literally within about 10 to 15 years, healthcare completely changed. Right about 1890 is when it all kind of started changing. So when, a lot of people in healthcare tell me that, herbalism is something new or strange or something we've never seen in America, the truth is that healthcare, the way it is today, is something that's only been around since about the early 1900s. And it's really just by isolated events that happen. Something called the Flexner Report and some other things that actually just somehow tip the scales. So what we look at is we look to other countries, and I think everybody's familiar that in every other country in the world almost, herbal medicines are available as medicines. They're available from the pharmacists, they're available from physicians, they're available from traditional healers. In a lot of countries, especially Germany being a really good example that people are trying to incorporate into American culture, they're covered by insurance completely. And they're also regulated by their equivalent of the FDA. And you can get them, it's funny, you can get them over the counter or you can get them as prescription, either way. So really every country, even Canada, has just recently enacted licensing for herbalists, the ability of anybody in natural health care with licensing to recommend herbs or nutritional supplements. So we really just kind of went through a little lapse in time, basically. It's almost like we forgot where we came from for a while in America. And now, as evident by all of you sitting here, the recent resurgence in alternative medicine is huge right now. And I'll tell you, having lived and studied in California, it's only going to grow exponentially here in Nebraska. And anybody that's here right now is in a perfect position because you're kind of getting in at the perfect time. If you go to any other, East Coast, West Coast, or Southwest, it's pretty much huge. And in a lot of areas, a lot of states, herbalists are actually seen as equivalent to doctors, just because states have the rights to choose how they license and regulate the practice of medicine or anything, really. So a lot of people are surprised. A lot of people I went to school with went to like Arizona because they could practice as a doctor. And I don't like the heat, so I love Nebraska, and it's where my vision has always been to be. So despite the jokings of all my classmates and everybody I've always known, everybody said, an herbalist could never make it in Nebraska. So, and come to prove that they were wrong. So the other aspect is we'll kind of hold off on the regulatory aspect a little bit because that's kind of like a whole class on its own. But one thing, just like you see in massage therapy or any practice of alternative medicine, this field of alternative medicine is huge and vast. Just like if you go to study with 10 massage therapy practitioners, one person may do polarity, one may do Reiki, one may do cranial sacral, one may do reflexology, one may do shiatsu, one may do Ayurvedic massage, and the list goes on and on. One may specialize in chakra work, one may do Swedish, one may do lymphatic. Massage therapy is a lifelong adventure of learning on its own. To really master any one aspect of it, could really take an entire lifetime. herbal medicine is really the same way. And massage and herbs kind of share a common theme in that if you look at any traditional medicine, especially taking a look at traditional Chinese medicine, because everybody's pretty familiar with Chinese medicine, there's certain types of Oriental massage that are becoming more popular. Chinese herbal medicine is its own practice unto itself. And they also have acupuncture, qigong, tai chi, martial arts, bone setting, just about anything imaginable. Feng shui, which comes from Chinese medicine, which is the art of placement to elicit a certain response in your environment. And really all these things are really related, but the theme to think about that I really like to impress upon people is that they all come from a very coherent system. It's not a haphazard system in any way, which makes the type of practice that I do really exciting. Because I practice traditional Chinese herbal medicine, which has its own theory of diseases, its own theory of illnesses, its own theory of sickness, its own even stages that diseases go through. So it's truly an alternative system, meaning that it has a complete alternate way to look at things. So a lot of times, I get patients from like Mayo, or they've been to like 1,000 different specialists, and they come and see me, and lo and behold, I have a completely different explanation for what their diseases are based upon. That's the really amazing part of the alternative systems. They have a whole different way to view things. So they can be a complement to medical therapy, or they can be a true alternative, either one. Sometimes I practice as a complementary herbalist, complementing whatever the physician's doing. Sometimes I'm a true alternative. I'm actually, doing something that would be an alternative to what the physician would. So then we have Ayurvedic medicine. Everybody familiar with Ayurvedic medicine or heard the term? It's the traditional system of India, very similar to Chinese medicine. I also practice Ayurvedic herbal medicine, which has its own series of looking at diseases, looking at the environment. Anybody did yoga? Then you've practiced Ayurvedic medicine. You just didn't realize it, because yoga came from Ayurvedic medicine. It's just that today a lot of people don't necessarily teach the really intricacies of how all that relates to the body types and the chakras and the whole system itself. So I also practice Western herbalism, which is kind of a unique system itself. Everybody's familiar, that herbs have active constituents and chemicals. The idea is based upon energetics, herbal energetics, which is kind of real-world experience. So everybody's bit into a nice hot pepper before. You got that sinus drainage, coughed up all that phlegm miraculously. You just basically self-medicated yourself. But we would say in Western herbalism that the energetics of that cayenne pepper is hot, which is not all that unlogical. It's very common sense. That I think everybody's familiar with would be peppermint. Peppermint, you have a nice cup of peppermint tea. A lot of people use it to calm down, calm the nerves, kind of calm digestive problems if there's a lot of upset. We would say that that's a very cooling herb. So there's this very intricate system of not only looking at how herbs affect the body, the organs, diseases, but also the energetics. We also have something called eclectic herbal medicine, which is those old doctors from the 1800s. They had their own system of diagnosis and assessment. And the neat thing about it is that you can access all that information today. So what you see across the nation is that herbalists will usually do Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, or the herbalists in Europe basically do almost like what's called medical herbalism, which is taking a disease like colitis or irritable bowel, and they treat it just by herbs that have been researched to work with that condition. That's also a different type of practice. What's unique about the way I practice is that I fuse all of them together, which some people would fuse as or see as maybe as schizophrenic or too many things all kind of wound up into one. But the idea is that you actually get this beautiful system where any patient can come to you with anything at all. Something bizarre as this, they just have this pain exactly right here, comes and goes, it's worse every fall or winter. Between one of those systems, I can pretty accurately pinpoint anything that's going on. Any questions yet? That's a lot of information I'm starting to babble on here. So, the other aspect that we could talk about is the regulatory aspect of herbs. And everybody is familiar with, the kind of common stance of physicians and healthcare providers today to say, herbal medicines, they've not been proven to work, A. B, they're not regulated. Both of which are not true. The idea is that the FDA has all the authority they want to regulate, enforce, shut down any company in the United States of America. The only thing that the healthcare people and the FDA doesn't like is that the burden of proof relies upon them. So which is good for us because they actually have to prove what they're saying to enforce it. And they don't want that. They want the complete ability to shut down or regulate anybody, which is scary. The other aspect is herbal medicines are highly researched. It's actually amazing to me that there is as much research on herbs from a science standpoint as there is, considering drug companies are the main source of research funds today. And if you look at all the research studies out there, this is so fascinating. Drug companies will, I can't say this totally because I could probably get in trouble, but drug companies will not be likely to study or to sponsor or fund any research that does a head-up trial between an herbal medicine and a drug that has the same effect, because they do not want to do that. Because they know if they did, it would show some pretty alarming results. So what a lot of people have turned to research in Germany, Europe, France, Russia, Sweden, Norway, because they fund research on herbs, because they use it in healthcare. Basically, the idea is that other countries are concerned with providing the highest quality care, the best results, the least side effects, and the most important, the most cost-effective way to do things. A great example of this is a friend of mine got back from Germany about a year ago, and she got this chronic sinus infection that turned into like a full-out sinus infection that started affecting like her brain, actually. It's pretty serious. So she got put to the emergency room, then they took her to a sinus specialty hospital, which in America would be about $1,000, $1,500 a day alone, just for the hospitalization, not even the treatments. And she was there for 12 days. And guess what her bill was when she left? What's that? How much? $25,000. Okay, this is in Germany. She has no German insurance. $200,000? It's $17. That's all she had to pay. Because they have a welfare-based system, and they also embrace a lot of herbal medicines. So, that's kind of interesting, huh? Most people, to even walk in to see your doctor without insurance would be $65 just to walk through the door or get a call returned. So, yeah, question?
Did she get healed or what?
Yeah, she was healed. She was fine. She recovered totally. And then since I saw her when she came back, she started going back to her old habits and all of that. You know how it goes as healers. So it's always an interesting process. So it's just interesting to think of what other countries do and to think of the kind of misinformation that is out there. The other information that is out there that I always like to kind of dispel is the idea that because things are natural, they take a long time to work, right? They don't have side effects, but they take a long time to work. That is totally erroneous. I feel if I did a good workup on somebody, which takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours, if I give someone the right formula that I kind of custom make by hand, then people should notice results of some kind, minor changes in 3 to 5 days. They might be little kind of mini healing crises. They might be kind of minor detoxification reactions. They might be some kind of an actual complete reversal of their symptoms. But I usually say in 3 to 5 days, which is what's neat about herbal medicine when it's practiced the right way is it's amazing. And as massage therapists, you know that's true already too. Someone has this muscle tension, it doesn't necessarily take 12 massages to relax that. You may really do a major improvement or completely reverse that in one treatment. Which, by the way, I'm a big fan of massage therapy, and I'm always wanting to advance the practice of massage therapy. And what is really neat is I like when massage therapy and herbal medicine merge and fuse. And those of you that take the class are going to see that I'm a huge fan of applying certain herbal medicines to the body to improve the results of massage therapy or any kind of treatment. And the more I get comfortable with the class, the more we kind of infuse that in there. So a lot of people are using essential oils already, which are herbal medicines. So it's just that when you get into Chinese medicine, you know exactly which point on the body to put them on, or you know exactly how to apply them. Or maybe with Ayurvedic medicine, you know a very special secret, I love secrets, massage technique that will actually help you get better results. It's kind of, like my high school counselor always told me, you work smarter and not harder. Because let's face it, massage therapy is a very rewarding job, but it's very hard. If you're going to see 8 people in a day, you're going to be pretty pooped by the end of the day. So what's kind of nice about some of these things is you can do some of these techniques, let them sit there for a while, get your energy back, let the herbs kind of do some of the work, kind of get your mind back in order, and they'll get up and say, wow, that's awesome. I think I'll come back to you again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and then before you know it, they tell their friends and everything. So that's an interesting topic. The other fallacy that you see is that there's this huge problem with herb-drug interactions, right? I mean, the media almost has people scared to take herbs anymore. And if you look at the studies, if you look at what's really happening, almost every adverse report of an effect of an herb on somebody is related to some strange dietary supplement for dieting or weight loss, which has nothing to do with the practice of herbal medicine. So everyone's familiar with like ephedra or Muao Hung or these really strong caffeinated things. That is completely removed from the practice of herbal medicine. It's basically some people sitting around saying, hey, this herb really stimulates metabolism, this one's a stimulant. I got an idea, let's make $1 million, put them all together in a pill and sell it. And it works well for people because it completely takes your appetite away and it increases your metabolism. But in the meantime, it really kind of affects the nervous system or the heart with a lot of people. So the idea is that herbal medicines rarely interact with medications. And herbal medicines, you want to know a really cool fact? Guess how many traditional formulas. Now the idea of the practice of herbal medicine or Chinese medicine is that you custom choose formulas or specific herbs and you kind of modify and work with them till they fit the exact needs of the patient. So, people given a traditional herbal formula throughout all of American history, guess how many adverse reactions there have been? 1. And it's just because it was a really amazingly strong Chinese formula that somebody didn't prepare the right way. So they just didn't educate the patient enough that they had to cook it for an hour, and they didn't cook it for an hour, and it gave them some stomach pains. So that's the amazing safety of traditional medicine, is that it has its own system of contraindications. You know, I look at all these books published on herb-drug interactions, and they're almost useless to me because they're so missing the point. The point is that if people really knew the herbs, they would know all the contraindications anyway, and they would already know the medicines they would interact with. So that's pretty cool. Herbal medicines are safe. They are actually regulated to a lot of degrees. And lo and behold, they're also really cost effective. So what else do we need to know about herbal medicine? One is that it's awesome because everything is individualized to the patient. It's kind of how you can determine as a person if someone is practicing really good alternative medicine or maybe not so good. The idea is when a patient comes through the door, everything is personalized, everything is individualized. There's an assessment that requires more than just saying, hey, how you doing? What's your complaint? Okay, bam, here's your formula. You know, my opinion is if it takes less than 15 minutes or a half an hour, it's not really holistic medicine. There's no way to ascertain all that information. That's a great question that kind of gets us back here. Where do I get a lot of my herbs? As an herbalist and as a self-proclaimed perfectionist, I know that the medicine I give is one of the most important things in the healing process. So as much as I can, I harvest and make my own medicines, which is something that's almost unheard of in today's world. You know, someone that actually cares enough about their patients and cares enough about the practice of what they do. I will go out, walk through wetlands, mudlands, lose my good hiking boots, get stickers, get cockleburrs, ticks, Lyme disease. I never had Lyme disease, but encounter rabid squirrels, which I have one time. Encountered badgers. That's scary. Did that a couple times. Just because I love herbs and I love the practice. And I feel that people should be given the best experience possible. So the idea. Yes, or a lot of them, if they're not native to this area, I'll purchase from people that I know are very reliable and make them myself. A lot of the Chinese formulas or Ayurvedic formulas, because they come from China, I can't go to China yet to harvest them. Someday I'll get there. So right now I have to rely on prepared formulas or make formulas from things that are prepared from other countries.
So then do you dry them and keep them, or do you make them into?
A lot of times I make them into liquid extracts because they preserve very well. And they also, the nice thing about liquids is that you can concentrate them to any concentration. So a great example, what's a good herb that we all know? Ginger. We all know ginger. We love it. Everybody named Ginger is always a really nice, happy person, full of fire and spunk. So I once treated this baby for this really chronic congestion. There's this infant that had severe, all kinds of problems. And guess what the baby's name was? Ginger. Guess what I gave her in her tube feeding? She was on a tube feeding only. Ginger powder. And it cured her. It's really interesting. So her doctor was all impressed. So I said I really didn't do anything except look at her chart and see what her name was. That's all it really took. So obviously there's a lot more to it than that. But the idea is that most herbalists will really actually kind of handcraft their formulas themselves. Because what did Grandma always tell you the best ingredient was? Love. And anyone who's ever cooked a meal knows love is the most powerful ingredient. So when I go harvest herbs, I do it, I have a lot of Native American training too, so I'm very conscientious of giving a lot of respect to anything. I just don't go find some herb and yank it out of the ground and leave a big hole. You know, I'm very thankful for whatever I take from the earth, which is why I don't harvest herbs commercially, because I feel guilty about it. I feel really sad. So I have a very intimate relationship with plants. So love is the best ingredient. And that's why also a lot of times I will try to make formulas by hand as much as I can, because my own energy and attention and focus is put into that. Not only that, but it allows me to custom formulate it to the patient's exact needs. So there's no questions. So what I usually tell people as an analogy, in the way that a lot of herbalists or a lot of people that do traditional medicine operate like, it's like painting a picture. So you have the holistic person that paints a picture, and you have the Western physician who is like a wood carver, like a chopper. Or better yet, anybody been to like these outdoor shows with a chainsaw, and they take two of the little pieces of wood and like chop them into beavers and carve them up? Anybody seen that? Takes like just literally seconds. They just, they're usually people, loggers, that have gotten too much time on their hands in the North Woods. So the idea is that if you use that analogy in your mind, even to like think of how you practice, you know, someone comes to me and they say, hey, I have, let's do something simple. I have irritable bowel. And they going through their symptoms and they say, I have kind of some menopausal symptoms, have this rash on my back, just right here in the special place, and it only gets worse when I'm menstruating. Ooh, as herbalists, we're like, ooh, that's so specific. We got to really work with that concept. And then they say, my left toe hurts. And then they say, I don't feel very creative right now. I'm just stifled. Say, I have a little frustration internally. The doctor said I have gastritis and a bleeding ulcer in my stomach. And you know what? My husband and I don't get along well. An herbalist or someone who does holistic medicine take every single thing that person said, everything, and paint a picture. Everything stays, nothing leaves. That's what holism's really about. The physician, you come and say, yeah, I have this irritable bowel. You're like, okay, we don't have any tests for that, but we know it's stress related, so you're stressed out. So then they say, well, my toe hurts. And I go, well, I don't want to know about your toe. So they take that piece of wood, carve it out, let it go. And then they say, well, you know, I have this rash. And like, oh, don't worry about it. It'll get better. So carve it, let it go. Or then they'll say, you know, I have this gastric ulcer. And they'll say, well, let's be more concerned about the irritable bowel, because we're only going to focus on one thing at once. So they chop that away. Maybe they say, well, I'm not getting along with my husband. So they say, well, gee whiz, something probably really not very caring. We'll just leave it at that. And they cut away that piece of wood. So what's left is this little carving of a little beaver. And everything's dropped off except the idea that this doctor wants to know you have irritable bowel. And that's all that matters, because the medication they are going to give just treats irritable bowel. It doesn't treat the frustration, it doesn't treat the skin rash, it doesn't treat everything. It's like the analogy of a wood carver. You carve away everything until you have this little thing left. Does that make sense? It's the idea, if you look at medicines from a Western perspective, they start with this one little thing. It's getting so specific now, like maybe you have this genetic variation of this one gene that went crazy when your mom and dad got together and created you. So they have this medication that will manage, what is a good one that's out there? Autoimmune problems in people with this exact gene. That's pretty specific. But the idea is that nothing else matters. They don't tie anything to the whole. They just start at this place that's so specific, they cannot come back up to the idea of holism. The exact opposite is like an herbalist or someone doing traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. You take all those symptoms and you make one darn herbal formula, which can be maddening, that addresses all of that. And then you give it to them. So you've really created a formula. In Chinese medicine, we call it treating the root and the branch at the same time. Meaning you treat everything, the symptoms, the root causes, what's underlying everything. Everything's treated in one formula and lifestyle recommendation. That's pretty powerful. That's also why the doctor can recommend an irritable bowel medication in 5 minutes. And I can't even recommend an herbal formula in 2 hours sometimes. I'm still trying to figure out how I can relate it all. What kind of assessments do I do? In traditional medicine, there's the idea that it's really just kind of haphazard, or there's really nothing specific about it. And that's also a really big fallacy. It's very specific. You know, the principles of Chinese medicine is that you cannot give any herb or any herbal formula unless it matches all the patient's symptoms. That's pretty maddening sometimes. So for diagnosis, we do a lot of good hands-on stuff. Everybody's been to the doctor, and not everyone's had a colonoscopy, but everybody knows what one is. And it's not the most inviting, warming kind of thing to ever have done to you. You know, a lot of people don't like laying on a table with some scope stuck in their rear. It's just not very nurturing. And the idea is that with Western medicine, they don't even do so much with hands-on anymore. You know, a great example is I just had a patient with thyroid growth, and her family doctor is an old doctor who still did the palpation of the thyroid and said, "Oh, you got some lumps in there, better send you to an endocrinologist." And then the endocrinologist couldn't feel anything because I wasn't even part of her training anymore. She's a younger person. And she goes, she actually said, "I'm feeling for it, but I don't know if I could feel it if I felt it." So it's the idea that a lot of this is hands-on. So what we'll do is we'll do a whole list of everything. I mean, you got to tell me everything from what happened in childhood to what are all your symptoms right now. Even if you don't even think of them, chances are I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to go, "Oh, yeah, I do have mental restlessness. I do have a little heart palpitation." Then people are like, "Hey, what are you doing? How do you know that? How do you know to ask me that?" Because it's very systemized. So you ask question. Questioning is one of the huge things. The other thing is observation. You're observing everything from the patient's smell to the color of their eyes, to markings in their eyes, to their face, their skin, the way they're breathing, the way they're walking. You know, the great example in Chinese medicine is someone just kind of walks into your room and they sit down, they tell you, "Hey, I am really pissed off. I couldn't find your office very well. I have this ulcer. I'm stressed out. I'm angry." You know, it doesn't take a third-generation Chinese doctor to say, "Okay, there's some heat going on there." That's what we would say. There's some irritation, some agitation going on there. But what you do is you just take those skills and refine them even more. So you look at the eyes, and even when you're looking at people, just like, "Hey, how you doing?" you instantly have this thing going on where you know what's going on. So it's said that the best doctors are the ones who know everything about their patients by the time they sit down. And I really challenge myself to try to get more to that level every day by someone's walking style, the way they posture themselves, their tone of voice, their speaking style, the way their face looks, their skin, maybe even the way their hair is styled. Ayurvedic medicine does a lot with hair, so you can look at all these hair things. It's really fun. We'll get into it in class. You know, really hair that, well, you ever have days where your hair won't go to place? You're like, "Oh, my hair." Yeah, I don't have very much hair, but there's days where it just like won't go into place, and it frustrates me. Everybody have one of those days? In Ayurveda, we say that's a day where the pitta aspect of yourself is really excessive. The hair will just be non-manageable. So, where you ever have time where your skin's just really oily, you're like, what is going on? I'm going through puberty again. The skin's really oily. I mean, in Ayurvedic medicine, we say that's like a kapha imbalance. So we're even feeling the skin and looking at the skin. And then we do a lot of hands-on diagnosis. We'll palpate the abdomen, which is huge diagnosis for women. You can actually do quite a bit with like fibroids and cysts and female problems just by certain ways to feel the abdomen. We also do the ultimate test, which is tongue and pulse diagnosis, which is where you look at the patient's tongue and literally can tell them anything by the time you look at their tongue. The other aspect is you do the pulses. And it's not pulses like Western medicine, like your pulse rate's 120. There's actually 28 types of pulse, each one with a very specific picture. And each one will guide you to a different treatment or diagnosis. And then you can actually do pulses in certain positions that can actually feel what's going on with all 12 internal organs. That's pretty powerful. It's very practical, it's very hands-on, it's very effective. A lot of people are sometimes really freaked out by it because they think you're what's that, Sylvia Brown, that psychic lady, They're like, what, you reading my mind? What are you doing? And it's really schooling. It's just really, you're a master of observation. And you know what every little sign and symptom means. It has nothing to do with being psychic. But if you are, hey, that's even better. Then you have the upper hand on me. So I have a lot of herb students that say, I can't do herbalism because I'm not intuitive like you. I go, I'm not really that intuitive. I just know how to observe people and behavior and symptoms. So, and then find out, anybody who says they're not intuitive usually are the most intuitive people. It's usually been my experience. So any other questions about herbal medicine? So maybe someone has headaches, right? So we say, what kind of headaches?
Migraines, the back times when you can't see, it affects the vision. I go numb in my arms.
Okay.
And I get very sick to my stomach.
Okay.
Are you looking at my eyes too?
Yeah. Where do you feel the migraine at?
It seems like it's more here. More here in the front.
Okay. Does it come and go at any time?
I never know what's going to happen. They may happen like every 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
And it may not happen for 6 months.
Okay.
So,
Does any like food, stress, change of season, anything precipitate it?
usually around the changes in seasons, and food sometimes does it. Yeah.
Master right there, change of season. You got it now.
Usually I had Mexican food the last 2 times I had it.
You did it?
Right, yeah.
What is in that Mexican food? There's that cayenne pepper. It's adding a lot of heat to the system, a lot of agitation, a lot of irritation.
Sometimes stress is related, but most of the time, the last 2 times it seemed like it was something I ate. I don't know that for sure, but the last 2 times it was.
Yeah, the spices are not good for you because you have that pitta constitution that just no spices. Pitta? It's the body type from Ayurvedic medicine. You really got it.
See, that's something I need to know about.
Exactly. Well, let's digress for 1 second because we already have a good idea for what's going on. It's the change of season. Traditional medicine is not just living in a house. It's the idea that the environment is still out there, but it's still affecting your body. It's still affecting your mind. And people are feeling it already. They're saying, I'm feeling a little more lethargic. Oh, I got to get my immune system ready because every fall I get sick. I get lung congestion, or a lot of people are saying, I get this seasonal affective disorder. That is the effect of the environment. Or grandma said, if you're going to go outside, honey, I remember my grandma bundled me up. Put on your scarf, put on your mittens, and put on your cap. Because why? Because the wind and the cold and the damp will invade your body and cause illness. Well, according to Chinese medicine, grandma was right. That the environment has a huge effect on us. And I'll challenge anybody to go outside a very cold, rainy day without proper clothing on, and you're going to get ill. It's not because bacteria are invading your body in any different way. It's because the environment has affected you. In Ayurveda, we say, as is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm, meaning that as is the environment, so is your body. The great example of that is in Chinese medicine, at the change of every season, you change the diet, you change the lifestyle. We already got into this in the class. You change certain symptoms, and certain illnesses will pop up in certain seasons. That tells you a lot of what's going on. So it's the idea that you're not only eating seasonally, but you're living seasonally. And you may even change herbal formulas seasonally. You may do everything seasonally. And America does this to some degree. You go eat at a restaurant in fall, they're not going to offer salads, they're going to offer soups. That's traditional wisdom. If you go to, what's another example? If you go to looking at the seasonal festivities, they're going to offer everything baked. Baked duck, baked chicken, baked pie, baked everything, because the baking process is very warming. And the idea is that what you're going to do is you're going to add warmth internally to the body. So you have a stronger ability to resist the cold in the environment. It's just like, what happens to ice cream sales in the winter? They just go to the kaputs. It's not because people don't love ice cream any worse. It's because they still have a shred of intuition that people still hold on to, even though people have totally lost their way. They still have that body's wisdom. They're falling a little bit. And the body says, ice cream is cold. When I eat it, my sinuses start running. That's not good in the winter and fall because I'm already prone to sinus congestion and mucus. So is that beautiful or what? So really, herbal medicine addresses the change of seasons. A great example is cleansing at every season. It's a big part of herbal medicine. Or there may be certain herbs that may not be indicated for that season. Like in the summer, it's really not time to be eating salsa every single day, unless you live in Texas, and that was quite an experience. They love the salsa. So the idea is that we all follow seasonal patterns, and so should our treatments on ourselves. A great example is, using essential oils with massage. It's winter out. A lot of people aren't going to like peppermint thrown all over their body. It's going to cool them down, it's going to relax them so much, and it might actually lower their body temperature. They want the ginger, they want the hot ginger, the hot mustard baths. Fire me up, give me some warmth and circulation. They don't want all that circulation relaxing. They want it to be fired up to the extremities again. So, I think it's more common for people in winter to want more physical movement, massage, a little more vigorous. So, what's cool about Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine is that every season there's different massage techniques. There's different essential oils that are to be used too. That's amazing. There's even specialized self-massage techniques that are to be used every season. That's pretty amazing at how much it can relate to everything, brings everything together. There are certain activities that are not to be done so much in certain seasons. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Or do you have a book by Jethro Close called Perfecting?
Yes, wow, this is a great tie-in.
Do you like it or?
Yeah, Back to Eden is one of the original herb books ever written. And if anybody wants, you can pick up my card afterwards, and I have my website, and it has a list of all the recommended readings that are good herb books that you can get for free. I mean, not the books, but the list is free. But speaking of Jethro Kloss, she brings up Jethro Kloss, which is an amazing 1800th, amazing German herbalist from 1840s or 1850s. His book is called Back to Eden, and it's still published today. And I have an association with Jethro Kloss every day. Do you know what that is? And as massage therapists, you should all know about Jethro Kloss for one reason. He has a very special liniment called Jethro Kloss liniment, which is amazing for massage therapists because it's specific for contorted spines and whiplash. Or people that are doing craniosacral, it'll actually move the cerebral spinal fluid for you, so your work is even more effortless. It's great for scoliosis. It's great for like very severely knotted muscles in the back, upper back and lower back that are kind of contorting the spine. It's also good for herniated disc. It's good for just about everything. It's even good for circulation.
What does it do? I have herniated disc.
You actually massage it in there every day. Or if you're doing a massage, what's that?
Push them back in.
Yeah, I've actually had people, this is a true story. I once had a patient who had just gotten in a car accident, had no insurance, was a good friend of mine, came to me for help, had a really contorted spine and whiplash. His spine was visibly, severely malaligned. I mean, it was almost scary. And so I'm in the basement of this house with him, and I have my other friend there who's total skeptic, he thinks herbs are kind of cool, just for other reasons, and he thinks I'm just an anomaly. So there's always that group of people that are always like, oh, you're cool, you do herbs, yeah. Where's my prescription for my glaucoma? Well, I don't do that. So, but this guy is laying on the floor, and we have him down there. We rub this Jethro Kloss all up and down his spine and upper neck. And this is really true, and I've seen it happen a couple of times. You could actually literally see his muscles and his spine decontort right in front of us. And my friend was like, whoa. And then everyone thought, what are you doing? They kind of did the double blink. And the liniment kind of created this kind of nice shiny effect on the skin with the lights, so you could just see it perfectly. You could literally see the muscles relax and the spine decontort. It's amazing. And it's happened to a couple of people that I've used it on. Now, regardless, that's not going to happen to every single patient you put it on. But it's certainly something that as a massage therapist you can have in your toolbox. I'm all about the old medicine pouch, I got this in here with my microphone. The old Native American medicine pouch where you pull out your medicine pouch. You got 1,000 different secrets in there. And you know just when to pull out the right little secret. It's like a lot of people that I studied with, there's no end to what they could pull out of their bag. If you had a contorted spine, they'd break out the Jethro Kloss. What's another good example of a remedy? Where there's something called moxibustion in Chinese medicine that we'll learn about. Someone has a really bad backache, you can do mox on the lower back and it just resolves it usually within a couple minutes. So there's some really neat tools out there. The only thing to keep in mind, and that's why I'm so happy we get to have this class here, because we teach the fundamentals of Chinese medicine. So when you're done with school, if you want to learn shiatsu, or you want to learn how to do really in-depth oriental massage or oriental body work, or if you want to do a lot of essential oil therapy, you have the groundworks that nobody else has. Because with all these systems, it's the system that makes it effective. It's not that Chinese herbs will blow out American herbs. It's because Chinese herbal medicine is so specific. So this system gives you that ability to do that. and you can do anything you want with your studies after that. And you'll know all the cool barefoot doctor stuff. You'll know how to walk into a room, look at that kitchen cabinet, whip up something, take your socks off, get in your bare feet, and do special techniques or cupping or moxa, work that person out to no end. So, sound good? That's basically a little brief rambling on herbal medicine. It's really an amazing thing that will take, a lifetime to really learn. But just like massage or anything, it's well worth it. So that's it. If anybody's interested, I don't know all of you except the newer class. You can get cards with the website so you can look at their recommended readings. There's some nice articles up there right now on how to do a liver cleanse and a fall cleanse. Just good educational stuff. So thank you very much.